Okay, everybody. So, in this part of your Unit 3 packet, we're going to be talking about the Indus River Valley Civilization. Okay, so when we talk about the Indus River Valley, we're talking about ancient India, right? So, this is this area of the world right here. Okay, so India, located right about there. We need to be able to put this on a map, and we need to be able to talk about kind of what happened there with ancient civilization and all these things we've been talking about with Mesopotamia and Egypt. Okay, so let's get to it. So, India, okay, that region of the world I just pointed to, is referred to as a subcontinent. Okay, so India is a massive area of land, and what they have going for it is they have these natural barriers that protect them from invasion. Okay, so I'm going to show a picture of that real quick. And when you look at India on a map here, what you see is that, okay, you have the Hindu Kush Mountains and the Himalaya Mountains that protect it. Okay, so we have these big mountain ranges, okay, that protect India from invaders. So over here on the right, we have the Himalayan Mountains, and you might have heard of Mount Everest or some of these huge mountains that are part of this mountain range. And we also have the Hindu Kush mountain range over here near kind of Pakistan, areas of northwest India. So in addition to those huge mountain ranges, we have deserts to the east, and we have, of course, the Indian Ocean to the south, which is protecting India. So this is usually a good scenario for early civilizations to start developing because they don't necessarily have to deal with invaders. Okay, so that protection from invasion, very important. Okay, the next thing that's unique to India, okay, and interesting as far as India goes, is that we have what are called monsoons. Okay, so monsoons are seasonal winds, okay, that lead to wet and dry periods. So a monsoon basically means the wind patterns in India kind of change over the seasons, and this means for a couple of months out of the year, there's a whole lot of rain, and there's a whole lot of, rainy weather, stuff like that. And then later on in the year, there's more dry periods. Okay, so you need to know what this monsoon is, and you need to be able to place it in India. Now, the next two things, okay, that are important to India, the Indus River and the Ganges River. So these are going to be the big rivers in India. Okay, so obviously we've been talking about the Tigris and Euphrates River, the Nile River. Okay, and now we have the Indus and Ganges River. So these are rivers just like the other river valley civilizations, and this brings them yearly floods that bring silt for agriculture, and the flooding pattern is going to be unpredictable, okay, with the rivers changing course. Okay, so again, as you can see from this kind of picture here, what you see is that these floods can be huge and they can be unpredictable, and they can kind of wipe out, entire towns, things like that. In fact, people think this civilization, fell apart because perhaps it was, a huge flood. Okay, so again, we need to be able to label, okay, the Indus River here and the Ganges River here. Okay, again, the river provides water, it provides food, it provides access to trade, transportation. So, okay, there's a reason that rivers are very important to these early civilizations. Okay, now societal advances. What did these people actually do, okay, way back in the day? So the first thing that's important about the Indus River Valley is they created a city planning system. Okay, so they created what was essentially a grid system. So if you go to kind of modern day New York, you'll have, kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 4th Street, and then you'll have an A, B, C, D. Okay, so that kind of system of a grid system of, planning out their cities comes from ancient India. Okay, so this is a little bit more complicated than Egypt or Mesopotamia. And one of the major cities that did this was called Harappa. Okay, so you need to know what Harappa was. Now, they had strong levees, okay, and walls that kept out water. Okay, so a levee is just basically a wall that kind of prevents flooding from happening. So obviously we have those unpredictable floods with the Indus and Ganges River, and we need to know about these levees that kind of prevented that flooding. Okay, sewage and plumbing. Okay, so a lot of people wouldn't believe it, but the ancient Indus River Valley civilization is actually where we first started to see sewage and plumbing. Okay, so we have bathrooms, we have showers. A lot of these showers were probably communal. Not exactly as sophisticated as you'd see in, your home or your house, but we do have sewage, we do have plumbing. And of course we have clay toys, which kind of shows that if we have toys, then, life isn't too bad for these people. Okay, so there's time for play, there's time for things like culture and entertainment, things of that nature. It's not strictly just trying to, do whatever you can to survive. So these people did live lives where, they could have a good time. So as we see here, this might have been a picture of what kind of an ancient Indian city would look like. So again, we see kind of these straight lines, city along a grid system. So we see the lines there kind of indicating a grid system. We also see kind of the plumbing aspect of it, so possible areas where water could be transported. So we see plumbing, we see a grid system, we see elements of sophistication and intricacy. Okay, and this right here, possibly a communal bath system. Okay, so this would probably lead into one of those tunnels or kind of sewage plumbing situations where they could go and remove the kind of dirty water, right? So sewage plumbing and that sort of washing, bathing type thing, we think comes from ancient India. Now, as far as the written language of India, we do know they have a written language, okay, which is good, but we're not quite sure what it means. Okay, so we've been able to decipher cuneiform and decipher hieroglyphics, but we've never quite figured out, okay, the ancient Indus writing system. And then as far as our government and social structure, what we see is a theocracy. Okay, so this is an important word. I would know what it means. So it means religious leaders control the government. Okay, so who are the religious leaders? Usually religious leaders are your priests, okay, anyone that claims to communicate with the gods or God or anything like that. So we think this was a theocracy and that the priests, the religious people, controlled the government and they made the decisions. Okay, and India will be unique. We'll revisit this later in the year for sure. But what we're going to see is less social divisions than what we talked about with Mesopotamia or Egypt. This will change hugely later on, but what we think the probable social division was that your Brahmins, your priests were at the top. Okay, remember we said this was a theocracy, so that only makes sense, right? And then your warriors would be on the next level. Okay, your business people, your merchants, and then kind of your lower level servants would be at the bottom. And then at the very bottom would be your slaves and kind of your untouchables. So this kind of social structure, very common for these ancient river valley civilizations. And we'll actually get more into this kind of specific social structure when we talk about the caste system. So something called the caste system might be good to know for now, but we'll get way more into it later in the year.